The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by any species. It could hold 10,000 beings at once. The walls were made of living crystal that changed color with the mood of the room. Today, the crystals were a calm blue. But that was about to change. Ambassador Catherine Moore walked slowly toward the central platform. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served humanity for 40 years in this council. She had seen treaties signed and wars ended. She had watched species rise and fall. But today would be different from all other days. The 12 species of the council watched her approach. The Velthari, with their long heads and 4 eyes, sat in the highest seats. They had founded this council 8,000 years ago, and they never let anyone forget it. The Korvax floated in energy spheres, their bodies made of pure light. The Drenics sat like mountains of stone, ancient and patient. The Althari whispered to each other with their silver tongues. High Counselor. Zither of the Velthari raised one of his 4 hands. The room fell silent. Ambassador Moore, he said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. You have called this emergency meeting. We are very busy with important matters. Please explain why you have wasted our time. Catherine reached the platform and turned to face the assembly. She did not smile. She did not bow. She simply stood there, looking at each species in turn. 300 years ago, she began, humanity received an invitation to join this council. We were young. We had just learned to travel between stars. We were honored and grateful. There made a sound of impatience. We know our history, Ambassador. Do you? Catherine asked. Do you remember what humanity has done for this council in 300 years? She pressed a button on her wrist, and images appeared in the air around her. Ships, stations, medical facilities, communication networks. We built your communication system. Before us, it took 3 days to send a message across the galaxy. Now, it takes 3 seconds. We designed your medical technology. The Amber Plague would have killed the Drenic species if human doctors had not found a cure. We negotiated peace between the Korvax and the Althari when their war threatened to destroy 100 worlds. The images kept changing. Humans working on alien ships. Humans teaching alien children. Humans dying in wars that were not their own. In 300 years, over 2 million humans have died in service to this council. 2 million of our people gave their lives for species that were not their own. Catherine turned off the display. And how has the council repaid us? She began to walk around the platform, looking directly at each species as she spoke. We are not allowed on the security committee. Our votes count for half what other species receive. Our ships are searched every time they enter council space. Our people are treated as servants, not partners. You are a young species, Zither said. You must prove yourselves before you can receive full privileges. 300 years is not enough. Catherine asked. 2 million dead is not enough proof? The Velthari waited 2,000 years before they were given leadership of the council, Zither replied. Patience is a virtue. Catherine laughed. It was not a happy sound. Patience. Yes, the council has taught humanity much about patience. We have been patient while you insulted our diplomats. Patient while you stole our technology and claimed it as your own. Patient while you treated us as children who should be grateful for any attention at all. She stopped walking and faced Zither directly. Our patience has ended. The crystals in the walls began to shift from blue to yellow. The council members stirred in their seats. What does that mean? Asked Counselor Vieran of the Althiri. It means, Catherine said clearly, that humanity is leaving the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, the room exploded with noise. Every species began talking at once. The crystals turned bright orange, reflecting the chaos. Zither slammed his hand on his desk again and again until silence returned. You cannot leave, he said. No species has ever left the council, and we will be the first. This is madness. What do you hope to gain? More voting rights? A seat on the security committee? Name your price. Catherine shook her head slowly. You still do not understand. We are not negotiating. We are leaving. But why? The question came from the Drenok representative, a being called Corvin. His voice was deep and sad. "We have always been friends to humanity." "You have been kind, Corvin," Catherine admitted. "Your people, at least, have treated us with respect. But kindness from one species does not erase cruelty from all the others." She turned back to address the full council. "In 1 week, all human personnel will leave council space. All human technology will be deactivated. All human ships will return to our home territory. We cannot deactivate technology that belongs to us," the Korvax representative said, his energy sphere flickering with alarm. "Read your contracts," Catherine replied. "Every piece of human technology contains special codes. We can turn it off whenever we want. You agreed to this when you accepted our gifts?" "This is theft," Zither said. "No. Theft is what you did to us for 300 years. This is simply taking back what was always ours." Catherine walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent hall. "One more thing," she said, stopping at the door. "When everything falls apart, when your systems fail and your wars begin again, and your people start dying, remember this moment. Remember that you had a choice. You could have treated us as equals. You could have respected what we gave you." She looked at Zither one last time. "You chose not to. Now you will learn what that choice costs." The doors closed behind her. In the weeks that followed, humanity moved faster than anyone had expected. Ships arrived at every human outpost in council space, loading equipment and personnel. Human workers said goodbye to alien friends they had known for years. Some cried. Most did not. On Earth, Commander Nathan Kelly watched the last ship descend from orbit. He stood on a mountain overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the wind blowing through his gray hair. His assistant, Lieutenant Maria Santos, handed him a tablet. "Final report, sir. All personnel are home. All technology has been deactivated." Nathan nodded. "How long do you think they have?" "Before what, sir?" "Before they realize they cannot survive without us." Maria thought about it. 6 months. Maybe less. Nathan turned away from the ocean and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a galaxy that had taken humanity for granted was about to learn a very hard lesson. "They called us children," he said quietly. "They said we needed to prove ourselves." He smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Hey now, they will learn what happens when the children stop doing all the work." The night was dark, but the stars were bright, and humanity, for the first time in 300 years, was finally going home. 6 months passed after humanity left the council. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The alien species told themselves that humans were not important. They said they could manage without them. They were wrong. The problems started small. A communication station stopped working on a distant moon. Engineers tried to fix it, but they could not understand how it was built. The machines inside were human designs, and humans had never shared how they truly worked. The engineers gave up after 3 weeks. Then the food synthesizers began to fail. These machines could turn basic elements into any kind of food. Billions of beings depended on them. When they stopped working, people began to starve. High Counselor Zither called an emergency meeting of the Inner Circle. Only the leaders of the 5 most powerful species were allowed inside. The room was dark because the lights had stopped working properly. They flickered and buzzed, casting strange shadows on the walls. "Report," Zither commanded. Admiral Theska of the Velthari military stepped forward. She looked tired. Her silver skin had lost its shine, and her 4 eyes blinked too often. "The situation is worse than we thought," she said. "In 6 months, we have lost contact with 47 colonies. Their communication systems failed, and we cannot reach them. We do not know if they are alive or dead. Send ships to check on them," Zither said. "Cannot. Our navigation systems are failing too. They were built by humans. Last week, we lost 3 ships that simply vanished during travel. 200 crew members. Gone." Counselor Villarone of the Altheri spoke next. Her voice was shaking. "Our analysis shows that humans built 63% of all council technology. Power systems, water cleaning machines, air processors, medical equipment. Defense weapons. All of it is breaking down. And fix it, Zither snapped. We are ancient species. We traveled between stars when humans were living in caves. Surely we can repair a few machines. We have tried, Viarn said quietly. We cannot. Why not? Because human engineering is different from anything we have ever seen. Their mathematics works in ways we do not understand. Their programming languages make no sense to us. We have had our best scientists studying a simple human food machine for 3 months. They still cannot figure out how it works. Zither slammed his fist on the table. This is impossible. Humans are primitive creatures. Their technology cannot be that complex. With respect, High Counselor Viaran said, we were wrong about many things concerning humans. The door burst open. A young officer ran inside, his eyes wide with fear. High Counselor, terrible news. The Korbaks and Altheri border, what about it? Admiral Theska demanded. War has begun. A small argument about mining rights turned into a battle. Without human negotiators to calm things down, both sides started shooting. An Altheri colony was destroyed. The Korbaks lost an energy station. The officer's voice broke. 40 million dead in the first hour. The room went silent. The flickering lights made everyone look like ghosts. Viaran stood slowly. The humans kept the peace for 300 years. Without them, we returned to what we were before. And what were we? Zither asked. Killers, Viaran said simply. Fighting over nothing while the galaxy burned. The war between the Korbaks and Althari spread quickly. Other species saw weakness and attacked their old enemies. The Drennic, who were dying from the return of the Amber Plague, raided Velthari supply ships for medicine. The Theskin Collective, a small species that had always been bullied by the Council, began conquering systems that could no longer defend themselves. In 3 months, there were 47 separate wars burning across the galaxy. Billions died. Trillions of lives were destroyed, far away from the chaos in human space. Dr. Samuel Park watched the reports coming in. He sat in a small research ship called the Horizon, reading numbers that made him feel sick. The death count has passed 10 billion. He said to his colleague, Dr. Linda Cho. Linda did not look up from her work. I know. Does that not bother you? Now she looked at him. Her eyes were hard. Of course it bothers me. I am a doctor. I became a doctor to save lives, not watch them end. But what would you have me do? We offered them everything. We gave them our knowledge, our technology, our people, and they spat on us. They are dying out there, Linda. They were killing us too. Just slower. With insults and cruelty and 1,000 small cuts that no one else could see. No. She turned back to her work. Maybe this is what they need. Maybe they need to understand what they lost before they can truly change. Samuel closed the reports. He could not read any more. Admiral Kelly wants to know if we should send humanitarian aid. Linda laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Humanitarian. A human word. Everything good in that galaxy is a human word. She shook her head. Not yet. Let them learn a little longer, if they die before they learn. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then they were never going to learn at all. Back on Velthari Prime, Zither stood alone on a balcony, looking out at a city that was slowly going dark. The power grid was failing. Soon there would be no lights at all. He remembered the day Catherine Moore had walked out of the council chamber. He remembered thinking that humans were weak, that they would come crawling back within weeks, begging for forgiveness. He had been so sure of himself. Now his empire was crumbling. The species he had ruled for 1,000 years were turning on each other like animals. The technology that had made them great was dying piece by piece. And somewhere out there, in the dark between the stars, humanity was watching, waiting, letting the galaxy burn. We made a mistake. Zither whispered to the empty air. We made a terrible mistake. But there was no one to hear him. The communication systems had failed days ago. He was alone. They were all alone now, and the darkness kept spreading, eating the light that humans had brought to the galaxy. leaving nothing behind but chaos and death and the bitter taste of regret. 2 years had passed since humanity left. The Galactic Council still existed, but only in name. The great hall where 12 species had once gathered was now half empty. The crystal walls were cracked and dark. The beautiful floors were stained with dirt, because no one knew how to clean them properly anymore. High Counselor Zither sat alone in his private room. He had aged 20 years and 24 months. His 4 eyes, once bright with power, were now dull and tired. Reports were scattered around him like dead leaves, each one carrying news of another disaster. The Korvax-Southry War had destroyed both species. Their great fleets, once guided by human navigation systems, had crashed into each other in the darkness of space. The survivors had crawled back to their home planets, too broken to fight anymore, but too proud to admit defeat. The Drenic were almost gone. The Amber Plague had spread to every colony. Their stone cities stood empty and silent. 1,000,000 years of history was ending, because human doctors were not there to help. The Thescan Collective had conquered 20 systems in the first year, but conquest without human technology was meaningless. They could not power their new territories. They could not feed the people they had captured. Their empire was already falling apart from the inside. A soft chime sounded at Zither's door. He did not want to answer, but duty was duty. "Enter," he said. Admiral Theska walked in. She looked almost as bad as he felt. "High Counselor, I have news." "More deaths? More wars? More systems gone dark?" "No," Theska hesitated. "A human ship has appeared at the edge of Council space." Zither sat up straight. For the first time in months, something other than despair touched his heart. "A human ship? What do they want?" "They say they wish to speak with the Council. They say they have a proposal. Bring them here now." The human ship landed in the central plaza 3 hours later. It was small and simple, nothing like the massive warships of the Council. But it moved with a grace that no alien vessel could match. Human engineering, even in the smallest things, was beautiful. A door opened, and a single human stepped out. Catherine Moore had not changed at all. She wore the same clothes she had worn 2 years ago. Her gray hair was still short and neat. Her eyes were still sharp and knowing. Zither met her at the base of the ship. He wanted to be angry. He wanted to shout at her for what humanity had done. But when he opened his mouth, only one word came out: "Please." Catherine looked at him for a long moment. There was no hatred in her eyes, no triumph, just a deep, sad understanding. "Walk with me, High Counselor," she said. They walked through the plaza together. It had once been the most beautiful place in the galaxy. Fountains had danced with liquid light. Gardens had grown plants from 100 worlds. Now the fountains were dry and the gardens were dead. "I remember when this plaza was full of people," Catherine said. "Species from every corner of the galaxy, coming together to build something greater than themselves. That was the dream of the Council, was it not?" It was, Zither admitted. "What happened to that dream?" Zither did not answer. He did not need to. They both knew. They stopped at the center of the plaza, where a statue of the first High Counselor had once stood. The statue had fallen during a riot 6 months ago. No one had bothered to fix it. "I am here to offer you a choice," Catherine said. "Humanity can end this. We can turn the lights back on. We can cure the plagues. We can stop the wars. We can rebuild everything that has been lost. We can exchange for what? Recognition." Zither blinked. Recognition. Full membership on the inner circle. Equal voting rights. Fair treatment for our territories and our people. The same things we asked for 2 years ago, before you told us to be patient. That is all? You would not ask for revenge? For punishment. Catherine smiled sadly. "Look around you, High Counselor. Look at what the galaxy has become. Do you really think we need to punish you? The universe has already done that for us." Zither's legs felt weak. He sat down on the broken base of the fallen statue. "We were so arrogant," he said quietly. "We thought we were the masters of the galaxy. We thought we did not need anyone. We thought humans were just servants who should be grateful for our attention," as Catherine agreed. "You did? How many have died because of our pride? 12 billion. Maybe more. We stopped counting when the communication systems failed. 12 billion. The number was too large to understand. 12 billion lives ended because the Council had been too proud to treat humans as equals. If we accept your terms, Zither said slowly, will you truly help us rebuild? Yes. Why? After everything we did to you, why would you help us? Catherine sat down beside him on the broken stone. For a moment, she looked very old and very tired. Because we are human, she said. We do not help others because they deserve it. We help because it is the right thing to do. We help because we believe that everyone can change. We help because holding grudges only poisons the one who holds them. She looked up at the sky, where distant stars were beginning to appear in the evening darkness. We also help because we know what it is like to be alone. Humanity spent thousands of years looking up at the stars, wondering if anyone else was out there. When we finally found you, we were so happy. We wanted to share everything we had. Her voice grew soft. All we wanted in return was to be treated with respect. That should not have been too much to ask. Zither felt something strange on his face. He touched his cheek and found it wet. Tears. He had not cried since he was a child. I am sorry, he said. On behalf of my species, on behalf of the Council, I am truly sorry. Catherine nodded. I know. That is why I am here. She stood and offered him her hand. It was a human gesture, one that meant trust and friendship. You have 1 week to give me your answer, she said. But I think we both know what it will be. Zither took her hand and let her help him to his feet. Thank you, he whispered. Catherine squeezed his hand gently, then let go. Do not thank me yet, she said. The hard work is just beginning. She walked back to her ship, leaving Zither alone in the ruined plaza. Above him, the S. Stars continued to shine, indifferent to the suffering below. But for the first time in 2 years, Zither felt something he had forgotten was possible. Hope the vote took less than an hour. Every species that still had a voice agreed without argument. Humanity would be welcomed back, not as servants, not as junior members, but as full and equal partners. It was the fastest decision in the history of the NV, Galactic Council. 1 week after Catherine Moore's visit, a fleet of human ships appeared in Council space. They were not warships. They were cargo vessels and medical transports and engineering stations, each one carrying the tools and people needed to rebuild a broken Galaxy. Catherine returned to the Great Council Hall for the official ceremony. This time, she was not alone. 50 humans walked beside her. Doctors and engineers and diplomats who had volunteered to leave their homes and help people, who had once treated them with contempt. High Counselor Zither met them at the entrance. He bowed low, a gesture that Velthry reserved only for those they considered their absolute equals. Ambassador Moore, he said, his voice echoing through the hall. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome humanity back. I apologize for every insult, every injustice, every moment of cruelty that your people suffered at our hands. The hall was silent. Every surviving species had sent representatives to witness this moment, Zither continued. We were fools. We thought age meant wisdom. We thought power meant we were right. We thought we could survive without you. His voice broke slightly. We were wrong about everything. Catherine stepped forward. We accept your apology, High Counselor. But understand this, we will not forget what happened. Not as a grudge, but as a lesson. If you ever begin treating any species as lesser beings again, we will leave. And next time, we will not return. Understand, Zither said. Then let us begin. The reconstruction started that same day. Human engineers spread across the galaxy like healing water flowing into dry ground. They fixed communication systems that had been silent for months. They repaired power grids that had left billions in darkness. They brought food synthesizers back to life in regions where people had been starving. Dr. Samuel Park led the medical teams. He had argued against returning. He had said the Council had not truly learned its lesson. But when Catherine had asked him directly, he had packed his bags within an hour. His first assignment was the Drenok homeworld. The amber plague had killed half their population. The survivors were weak and dying, their great stone bodies cracking and crumbling. When Samuel's ship landed, a Drenic leader named Corvin was waiting for him. Corvin was massive, over 12 feet tall, but he moved slowly and carefully, like a man made of broken glass. "Human healer," Corvin said, his voice like rocks grinding together. "You have come." "I have," Samuel replied. "Why?" "My people did not treat yours with cruelty, but we also did nothing to stop those who did. We stood silent while you suffered. That was its own kind of evil." Samuel looked at the ancient being for a long moment. Behind Corvin, he could see a city full of sick and dying Drinoc. Children made of stone, crying for parents who could not help them. Elders who had lived for 10,000 years, finally facing death. "I am a doctor," Samuel said finally. "I became a doctor to save lives. Not to judge who deserves saving." He opened his medical case and took out the first injection. "Hold still. This might feel strange." The cure worked faster than anyone had expected. The original treatment had taken weeks. The new version, developed during humanity's 2 years of isolation, worked in hours. Within a month, the plague was under control. Within 3 months, it was completely gone. Similar miracles happened across the galaxy. The Korvax Altheri were ended not through negotiation, but through exhaustion. Both species had destroyed so many ships that they could barely keep their home planets running. Human engineers offered to rebuild their fleets, but only if those fleets would be used for trade and exploration, not war. Faced with a choice between human-built ships or no ships at all, both species agreed. For the first time in centuries, Korvax and Althari vessels flew side by side without shooting at each other. The Theskin Collective, which had conquered so many systems during the chaos, discovered that empires were easier to build than to maintain. Without human technology, their captured territories were useless. Their people were starving. Their enemies were gathering strength. Rather than watch everything collapse, the Theskin leaders made a surprising choice. They returned most of their conquered systems and asked to join the council as full members for the first time in their history. Commander Nathan Kelly traveled across the galaxy to observe the reconstruction. What he saw surprised him. "They are changing," he reported to Catherine during one of their regular meetings. "Not all of them, and not quickly, but it is happening." "Tell me," Catherine said. "The Drenic have renamed their main plaza Human Square. They teach their children about how human doctors save their species. The Korvax have started including human mathematical ideas in their most sacred texts. Even the Altheri, who are always the worst to us, have created programs where young Altheri live on Earth for a year to learn human ways. Do you think it will last?" Nathan thought about this for a long time. Maybe, maybe not. In a few generations, they might forget. They might start resenting us again. Probably, Catherine agreed. That is how people are. They forget. They make the same mistakes over and over. Then why are we doing this? Catherine smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one, because that is who we are, Nathan. We do not help others because they will be grateful forever. We help because it is right. We help because while we are doing the work, the universe is a little better than it was before. She looked out the window at the stars that humanity had once thought they would never reach. Maybe they will forget. Maybe they will turn on us again someday. But right now, today, billions of people are alive who would have died without us. Children are growing up who would never have been born. Species that were about to disappear will survive another 1,000,000 years. Her eyes were bright with something that might have beat. In tears, that matters, Nathan. Even if nothing else does, that matters. Nathan nodded slowly. He understood. He did not agree with everything Catherine said, but he understood. Outside the window, a Velthari ship passed by, its lights blinking a greeting to the human station. Once that ship would have demanded to search any human vessel it encountered. Now it simply said, "Hello, small changes. Tiny steps." But steps forward, not backward. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all anyone could ask for. The galaxy was broken, but it was healing, and humanity was there to help. just as they had always been. 100 years had passed since humanity returned to the Galactic Council. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. On Velthary Prime, the central plaza that had once been ruined and dark, a great monument stood. It was simple, a tall stone pillar carved with words in every language of every species that had survived the collapse. The words were the same in all languages. Here we remember what was lost and what was found. When humanity left, we learned the cost of arrogance. When humanity returned, we learned the value of humility. May all who read these words remember, no species stands alone. We rise together, or we fall apart. Ambassador Jonathan Clark stood at the base of the monument. He was young, barely 40 years old. But he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who understood his place in history. He was here to represent humanity at the centennial celebration. Catherine Moore had died 30 years ago, peacefully, surrounded by family and friends. But her work lived on in every treaty that kept the peace, every hospital that saved lives, every school that taught young aliens to respect all species. Beside Jonathan stood High Counselor Thessera, the first female Velthary to hold the position. She was the granddaughter of Admiral Theska, who had witnessed both humanity's departure and return. Your predecessor was a remarkable woman, Thessera said, looking up at the monument. She would not have liked all this attention, Jonathan replied. She always said the work was more important than the person doing it. Perhaps, but people need heroes. People need to believe that one person can make a difference. Thessera gestured at the crowd filling the plaza. Representatives from every species in the council had come to honor this day. These people are here because of her, because she showed them a different way. Jonathan watched the crowd. A Korvax child made of soft light was playing with an Althri child with silver skin. A Drenic elder was teaching a group of young Velthary about the history of stone sculpture. Everywhere he looked, species that had once been enemies were now friends. She used to say that humanity's greatest gift was not our technology, Jonathan said. It was our ability to forgive, to give second chances. A strange gift, Thessera observed. Many species would call it weakness. Many species did. That was the problem. Thessera was quiet for a moment. The sounds of celebration filled the air around them, music, laughter, the happy noise of people enjoying peace. Do you think we have truly changed? She asked finally. My people, I mean. All of us. Jonathan considered the question carefully. It was the same question that humans had been asking themselves for 100 years. I think you have changed enough, he said. Not perfectly. Not completely. But enough to build something better than what came before. Enough to deserve another chance. And if we fail again, if we return to our old ways, then humanity will still be here, watching, waiting, ready to give you another chance, and another after that. Thessera shook her head slowly. I do not understand. After everything we did, why would you keep helping us? Why would you keep forgiving us? Jonathan smiled. It was a warm smile, full of something that Thessera had come to recognize over the years. Humans called it hope, because that is what humans do, he said. We believe in the possibility of change, even when everything seems hopeless. We believe that tomorrow can be better than today, even when today is dark. We believe in each other, and in you, and in the simple truth that no one is beyond redemption, even after betrayal, even after cruelty, especially then. It is easy to be kind to those who are kind to us. The real test is being kind to those who have hurt us. Thessera bowed her head. In Velthary culture, this was a sign of deep respect. Then I hope we prove worthy of your faith, she said. You already have, Jonathan replied. Every day that you choose peace over war, cooperation over competition, you prove it again. That is all any of us can do. One day at a time. One choice at a time. The celebration continued long into the night. Species that had fought wars for thousands of years danced together under the stars. Children who had never known fear played games that their grandparents could not have imagined. And above it all, the monument stood silent, reminding everyone who passed of the lesson that had been learned at such terrible cost in the centuries that followed. humanity never again left the Galactic Council. There were disagreements, of course. There were tensions and arguments and moments when the old prejudices tried to rise again. But somehow, the galaxy always found its way back to balance. Some said it was because human technology had become too important to lose. Others said it was because the memory of the collapse was too painful to repeat. But those who truly understood knew the real reason. The galaxy had learned to love humanity. Not as saviors or servants, not as tools or threats, but as partners, as equals, as friends, and that was the greatest legacy of all. Not the technology that humanity built, not the wars they ended or the plagues they cured, but the simple truth they taught a galaxy full of ancient, proud species, that the youngest among them had been wise all along. That cooperation was not weakness, but strength, that respect was not earned through conquest, but through service, and that sometimes the universe itself will teach these lessons to those who refuse to learn them any other way. The humans left, the Galactic Council, and the universe collapsed. The humans returned, and the universe was reborn. And in the quiet spaces between the stars, in the places where light itself does not reach, the story was passed down from generation to generation. A reminder, a warning, a hope. This is what happens when you forget the value of those who serve. This is what happens when you remember. And somewhere, watching over it all, the spirit of Catherine Moore smiled. Her work was done. The rest was up to them. But she believed, as all humans believe, that they would find their way. They always did. The end.